Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink. It is time for some pathofexile 1 discussion. I had a viewer reach out to me with a question, and that question was, where are the shields that have the explicit modifier that was only available through the use of an Essence of Desolation, which is a legacy currency item that was only available during the Mirage League? Where are they coming from? There's a small number of them available for sale in the current trade league. Anyways, I did some investigation into this and we found the answer. And if you are interested in these particular shields, of which there are currently 15 listed on trade, hopefully this will help you source one for a little bit cheaper than the current lowest price. Because as I am recording this video, the lowest price for these is 150 Divine Orbs. And it does look like someone has gone and purchased a lot of them and then relisted them at higher prices over the last couple of days, because they have definitely exploded quite a bit in price during this period. So they're definitely expensive, but we figured out how to create them. That's what this video is about. The answer is that they drop, and you'll see here that I got one of the wrong Essence of Desolation mods, this Carrion Raw Gavel. This thing is terrible, but I'll demonstrate in a sec the footage of where it dropped from. There's a couple of things. It's not usually useful, but there's a couple of weird situations where that becomes really strong. Double damage against enemies for each type of ailment you've inflicted on them. That's my first hit of a Desolation-exclusive mod. So let's talk about how you actually get these things. And the most important part is on your Atlas passive tree. These are normally regarded as travel nodes. They're normally regarded as a tax that you have to pay in order to get one of the best notables that exists on an Essence tree. That, however, is not the case for farming these. These are the actually important nodes, and this one, yeah, you want it, but it's not very important to your strategy. So, imprisoned monsters in your maps have collectively 100% chance, because you take all 4 of these, to drop an additional rare item. This rare item will spawn with an essence modifier. What I believe happens here, I want to be clear, this is speculation, this is definitely not proven, but what I suspect is going on here is that the game is then going through all of the essences that exist in the game and choosing one of them uniformly at random. And then once it has picked one, it then just applies that to a rare item. So you've got a chance of getting an Essence of Insanity, Horror, and the like, and Soul Bastion is one of these. I think it's Hysteria, but I could be wrong on that. But you also have a chance of getting Carrion Raw, or perhaps something better than Carrion Raw, which has come from an Essence of Desolation as well. So even though Essences of Desolation can't drop, these special mods can still exist as a result of this mod. Now, one thing you need to know about this as well is that your loot filter is not able to tell the difference between these modifiers that you actually care about, the Essence of Desolation ones, and some of the very low value modifiers that are exclusive to essences. A lot of the Muttering and Weeping essences, they end up having mods that you can't get any other way because they're just slightly better or slightly worse than the bottom tier of rare mods that exist on normal items. And that's the same in a couple of other spots as well. So what you're going to want to do is set up your loot filter however you want it. Then if you're using Filter Blade, just do a quick search for Essence. And once you've got that, come down to this rule that says Identified Mods Essence, 1 rule. Make sure that these items show. That is critical. The next thing you want to do is set them up to have a sound. Now, personally, I have gone with the obnoxious tink sound. And this ends up being quite frustrating. So I'll have to play something else, then come back to it. But you will get that sound, that tink sound when they drop. But unfortunately, you're going to get it for a lot of things that don't deserve a tink as well. The exact way you want to manage this is entirely up to you. Maybe you decide instead that it is more appropriate to have something less intrusive, like sound 2. But I will let you make that decision. I'm keeping mine with a tink just because it's a bit silly. And then just have something that stands out a little bit here. Maybe, for instance, you might decide that you want to have a red background, and then you can set it to be larger. If you're using a different way of customizing your loot filter, you'll have to figure that out yourself. I'm only really familiar with Filter Blade. But it is important to note, you do need to make these things stand out, because these are normally a sign of a terrible item. And as a result, most people will normally have them filtered out on anything medium or high strictness. You don't want them filtered out because you're chasing them. So that's the important part there. What else do you want on your tree? Really, whatever you want. This is the part that matters. There are a couple of other nodes that give you a weaker version of Prolific Essence that stacks with it, so you could consider taking those as well. And ultimately, I think you just want to have things that are fast to run. Whatever those are entirely up to you. Scarabs wise though, Scarabs are what really matter. You'll see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 classic Essence Scarabs. This is a very unusual setup for an Essence tree. Normally you would be using Essence Scarab of Ascent because it triples the loot that you get from non-corrupted essences, but we don't care about that because we're not really chasing after those essences. They're a bonus, you pick them up, but they're not the reason you're here. That said, feel free to change this around a little bit. You're not required to do it exactly this way. You can optimize differently. You can go for Essence Scarabs of Ascent if you prefer, or you can do whatever else you want. You've got a lot of flexibility. You make the decisions there. The key thing is, though, that if you want to maximize your chances of getting these particular mods, then more Essence Scarabs is what you want. How difficult do you want your maps? Do you want to be using 8 mod originator maps? No. How about the most boring of all? You can actually do this with a scaled map. You don't need to do it with a scaled map. You will get more loot from other monsters in your map if you don't do it with a scaled map. But just for the purposes of demonstration, I was testing this out with a scaled map. And that's because it is a flat chance. This is just a 25% flat chance. It doesn't scale with anything that your character does. It doesn't scale with anything else really at all. As for your character requirements, a best character type you could have for this is one that's got good burst damage against rare monsters and that is also very, very fast. However, you don't need that. I'm not playing a build that fits that, and I was able to mess around with this reasonably effectively. The rest of your Atlas tree is entirely up to you. You can copy this or not. Actually, I don't really recommend copying this. I just felt like doing some King's March content, and I went Searing Exarch because they're fast events. I went Heist because they're fast events. And then I blocked a bunch of stuff. But you do whatever you want there. The only thing that really matters is that you don't overjuice your essences to the point that you're failing the monsters, and at the same time that you have this entire cluster down here. So that's how to find those Essences of Desolation. You can't actually get the essence item itself. You start with something that's random, and then you preserve it there, and you do all sorts of complex crafts from there. Most people aren't going to be interested in this particular type of mod, but if you're choosing to play an armor stacker, you're going to be very, very, very happy to see that thing back. I'm going to leave it there. May your Valobs have interesting results, and just in case you missed it, yesterday I did a massive overview of the pathofexile 3.29 meta so far. Some people have reached out to me since then and said I probably should have characterized luminaries a bit better, and I think I agree with them. So just factor in that luminaries, depending on how exactly you want to group them, they don't really leave a clear mark in the trade API, but it looks like they might actually be the second build, which then means that some of the comments I make about build diversity are maybe slightly overstated, but they're still pretty high. Anyways, that's all. May your Essences of Desolation have interesting results, even though you can't actually get an Essence of Desolation this league.